Hi, my name is Manny Flores, and this is a series of short videos designed as a supplement to the traditional resume cover letter format associated with human resources and recruitment efforts. So again, normally I carry this stuff in a series of notebooks. It's kind of cumbersome. I can always bring that and we can talk at length, slowly and with some detail behind it. But as a means of conveying the extent of my experience and capabilities, I thought I'd go over this very quickly. And again, we're going to try and keep the file size down, and so we'll go quick, but I assure you, should anyone desire a discussion with more detail, I'm more than happy and willing and to be involved with that. Just merely give me a call, send me an email, and be happy to accommodate you. So again, to be brief, the most recent 10 years of my career have been involved with public works contracting. The reason for that being post Y2K, turned out that that requirement was less than than it was touted to be, and with the fizzle of Y2K compounded with the events of 9/11, I just want to say manufacturing market really took a downturn, and there wasn't much out there. I was fortunate I was able to migrate my skill set into public works contracting, and started out as a PM, eventually became a PM and an estimator, and even delved into operations management and I want to say service management for another entity. But we'll get to that. This series of videos is primarily designed to emphasize the manufacturing end of my career. And so as I said, we'll go fairly quickly. It's going to be broken up into, I'm thinking probably at least 3, if not 4 videos, but I'll put these out in a one cloud location so that links to them can be distributed, and you can download them and view them at your leisure. And again, take the time to go through it slowly, so that you get a full indication of where I've been, what I'm capable of. All right, so what we're looking at here, again, this is Manny Flores. This is what I've been: D&M nameplate, Hollingshead International, Schlosser Forge. After Schlosser, Richter, which became Tenneco, ultimately Fay, which was a subsidiary of Wedgestone Automotive, and then their competitor Smittybilt. And after Smitty, again, that was post Y2K, got involved with a group called Reyes and Sons Electric, eventually Independent Electric, who was a distributor, but we were doing something unique for SoCal Edison. Also worked in between all of that for a group called Brassfield Communications, and service management for them, and then back to Reyes and Sons again briefly as their ops guy, and most recently with CSI, another electrical public works contractor. So again, a lot of history, a lot of capability, but focusing back on manufacturing, let me just say that before Hollingshead, I worked at with a group called D&M Nameplate. Actually, before D&M Nameplate, I worked at Lockheed when they were still in Burbank. Started out as a tool crib attendant, eventually made my way into expediter, and then I want to say computer operations and peripheral. I was a low man on the totem pole in computer operations at the Burbank division, and I just want to say that it introduced me to aviation. I took the time to educate myself through Lockheed's internal education regarding design, planning, blueprint reading, expediting, you name it, whatever there was that was available, I took a class in it. And so it gave me a good basis for the beginnings of my career in production and inventory management. But ultimately, when I left Lockheed, I was hired by D&M Nameplate as their estimator. Everything that D&M did was DoD related, and mostly prototypes. So from that experience, I developed an ability to read and parse the technical legalese associated with DoD RFQs, FAA regs, mil specs, FARs. This was pre-ITAR, but ultimately I got involved with ITAR as well. So I want to say that D&M was a good, again, a supplement to the education that I had received at Lockheed, got me further involved in some of the nitty-gritty details of not just production, but design development and, I want to say, regulatory compliance. And again, I was very young. The owner took a liking to me, and again, just I have this innate ability to read and decipher technical documentation. Because of that, he afforded me the opportunity to become his primary estimator. But ultimately, I left D&M and went to work for Hollingshead International. Hollingshead was one of two avionics retrofit companies in the U.S. at the time. Hollingshead here on the West Coast, and our competitor was on the East Coast, and I don't even remember their name at this point. But as you can see, hired in as their estimator. Hollingshead was primarily focused on the OEM commercial market. However, they were a registered DoD supplier. Unfortunately, no one on the Hollingshead staff had ever actually bid anything for the DoD. They would merely no bid, which kept their name active, waiting for a point sometime in the future. Obviously, I came from D&M Nameplate, where that was all I did was DoD. So they agreed to let me take a proposal home and work on it. And long story short, we were awarded that proposal. It involved some very tricky stuff. I did some temporary tooling to get around the existing supplier and their advantage over already having the tooling. But long story short is we did get an award. Hollingshead at the time I hired in was doing $8 million annually. This one contract initially was $4 million, and by the time we were done with that program, it was generating $12 million a year. So I was recognized as the as the rising star in the organization. Ultimately, for between 89 through 94, I eventually became named their major program summary manager. For lack of a better term, I was their operations manager, and in essence, they recognized me as a master scheduler, which meant in order to master schedule, you had to have some type of ERP capability, which over the course of the years that I was there, I also managed to implement. Again, it wasn't just me, it was a group of guys that I had worked with there, Mark Rice, Mr. Schlegel in production planning. Eventually, Bob Lee left the organization, and I kind of filled in as the materials guy slash operations guy slash master scheduler. But I recognized that the homegrown system that we had wasn't going to support us as our demand grew, and so convinced Mr. Hollingshead that having been successful at generating more revenue, I was somewhat correct in the assessment that we were going to need to replace our existing homegrown IT system. So Bob, Mr. Hollingshead, had gone out and hired a guy named Ed Williams to come on board to help as a consultant. He had some familiarity with this. Now, those of us who know MRP and ERP development concepts, you'll recognize the names Oliver White and Joe Orlicki. Oliver White being the recognized father of modern MRP theory and technology, and Joe Orlicki being his right-hand guy, a bill of material genius. Turns out that Ed Williams had actually worked directly with Joe Orlicki. Ed came on board, saw what I was doing. more or less through sheer logic. It wasn't any formal introduction into MRP. I was aware of it, knew we had to adopt it, and had already developed some concepts within our organization using spreadsheets that were right in line with standard MRP theory. So at any rate, Ed took me under his wing, introduced me to APIX. Eventually, I got involved with the CPIM program. Was director of programs for the Inland Empire chapter. Really got heavily involved with that group, and it paid back benefits over the years. But as you can see, Hollingshead developed rather handsomely into a growing, profitable, expanding business. Ultimately, moving their operations, I believe, to Gilroy. Before my most recent information was that they were defunct. I found out about that about 3 years ago. However, my involvement ended with Hollingshead when the company was sold to DeCrane Aircraft. DeCrane was a holding company, and the first thing they did was purchase the source code for Cymex, the MRP software that we had implemented. And albeit early in my career with ERP, I already understood that once you buy the source code and you start messing with the standard coding of the software, you're going to cause problems down the road. We all know that once you do that, your support vanishes, your warranty vanishes, any kind of upgrades or I want to say supplementary additions you make to the software all become more expensive. And so recognizing that this was Hollingshead's future, I excused myself and went to work briefly for a group called Dimick Sheet Metal. Now Dimick, sheet metal manufacturer, they had a primary contract with Johnson Sweeper doing heavy duty component parts for Johnson. I was hired to as a systems analyst to bring them into the 21st century with an ERP upgrade or install. I managed to identify during the brief time that I was there, first they were daisy chaining Macs as their only internal IT system, and they had Great Plains as financial software. So I found Magi, a manufacturing action group. It's a form of desktop-based ERP. Also managed to get them hip to some master scheduling using, of all things, Microsoft Project. And I coded an estimation program for them so that they could produce estimates more, I want to say, systematically. But long story short, I was hired by a guy named John Gooddale, and the day I walked in, he apologized for not being authorized to actually pay me what he had said he was going to pay me. So I took a pay cut along with a move to the new organization. And then shortly thereafter, it turns out John was the owner's son-in-law. And they had a falling out. John got let go, and the owner looked at me and said, "I don't even like computers. Why do I need you?" So this was where the estimation program came in. I told him that I was a former estimator. I could probably help him in that respect. So he kept me around long enough to produce that that program for him. And simultaneous with completing that, I was able to get hired at Schlosser Forge. Schlosser Forge is a jet engine casing manufacturer. They did repair parts and replacement parts for Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, GE, you name it. But again, an organization who was utilizing homegrown software, had no MRP capability, no formal production planning capability. They were doing everything paper-based, and I was hired in to help them develop master scheduling. You know what? We're getting long. I'm going to cut it here so that we can keep the file size down. Please look for part 2 in what I think is going to be 2 out of 4. I'm projecting at this point. Hopefully we can go fast enough to keep it down to maybe even 3. But at any rate, look for part 2. We'll continue on with Schlosser Forge and where I've been. But again, my name is Manny Flores. My email, mgflow1213 @gmail.com. And my cell number, area code 661-544-6327. Again, my email is M like mother, G like Gary, FLO, Frank Larry Oscar, short for Flores, 1213 @gmail.com. If you'd like to sit down and talk to me at length about my capabilities, my experience, and how that can perhaps resolve some issues within your environment and maybe even enhance your environment, I'm more than willing to provide that time, make myself available wherever you are, you name it, I'll be there. So again, look for part 2 shortly, and thank you very much for your time thus far.